Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Mortgage Matters Show, where I talk to real people in the field of real estate and business who are not only experts, but they're generous and willing to share their knowledge and wisdom with us here today. And the goal of the show is for you to gain some information and tips to help you reach your business goals and your goals in owning real estate, and to take some of the guesswork out of what to do or who to call in the process. And today, I'm very grateful to have Angie Ross with me here. Hi, Angie.
Hi, how are you, Gretchen? Thanks for having me.
I, I'm great. Thank you. Well, so Angie is a certified cash flow specialist and money coach who's been spreading her expertise passionately as a financial educator for the past 18 years. And she prides herself on providing unbiased, straightforward financial mentorship, allowing her clients to achieve their financial dreams without painful budgeting. Angie and her
Mhm.
husband dreamed of becoming investment property owners and successfully overhauled their personal finances in order to purchase a long-term rental property in Port Hope in Ontario in 2019. And then they expanded their portfolio in 2021 through the purchase of a vacation rental in Mont Tremblant, Quebec, which she could probably say much better than me. These purchases have improved their immediate cash flow and have contributed significantly to their net worth. And Angie believes her helping her clients calm their cash flow chaos in order to maximize their money. Whether the client's looking to eradicate debt, find investment property, or get on the same page as their partner, Angie can provide a customized solution. And I first met Angie through Instagram, and we had some mutual friends and mutual contacts. And I really loved what she was presenting. Angie's personality just shone through, her passion, her fun, her family. And I just thought, wow, this is really great and really helpful information that I could share with my clients and my audience. So we connected and we did a presentation together on short-term and long-term rentals. And I feel like we're like-minded and we're friends.
Perfect. Yes, we are. And that presentation I loved doing. So,
Yeah, that's cool. We'll make sure people know how to find that one too.
mhm.
Um, please tell me, introduce yourself and tell any other background information that you want to about who you work with or how you help people.
Sure. You covered a lot of it, but one of the things that you said that was great is I have been a financial educator for about 18 years. I know I don't look that old, but I am. And what happened was I was actually teaching personal finance at the high school level, and the parents kept coming to me for advice. They wanted advice. And the problem is the advice that they were getting was from biased sources. So if they went into their bank to get advice, and don't get me wrong, we need banks, but when they went into their bank to get advice, the bank was selling them products. So was the advice biased? Yes, because the bank had their best interest in mind as well. And so they kept asking me questions because they knew I wasn't selling them products. So I recognized at that point that there was a need for money coaching and really unbiased money coaches who don't sell products in the market so that people could actually get some guidance and some mentorship. And so that's when I made the leap out of teaching into money coaching.
Well, that's first of all awesome to hear that they actually had a personal finance course in high school. They always, hear that they don't have too much of that, so that's awesome. And yeah, you have the perfect background for it. So, okay, well, so when most people think of household cash flow and trying to find money to enjoy life or grow investments, they think of that word budget, and myself included. It makes me cringe, and I go, don't want to deal with that. So, what is your approach that's different than a budget?
Yeah. So listen, I just want to tell you first 79% of people fail on budgets. So, as a numbers gal, I know you're a numbers gal. I cannot stand behind something with such a terrible record. So, realistically, budgets just don't work because they're restrictive, they're time consuming. People feel like they want to be defiant when they're on a budget. And the main reason is that they're very reactive. So we put our numbers in our spreadsheet at the beginning of the month, we carry on with our lives for the month, we come back, we go to look at our spreadsheet, and we're like, oh, I went over in this category, in this category, in this category. It's too late, right? So it's reactive. And so that's really why I try to stay away from budgeting. There are 21% of people that can do it. Great, go on your way. You don't need me. That's the reality. So I like to do what's called the anti-budget approach. And the anti budget approach is a little different because we take your income, we subtract the things that are fixed. So your housing, your transportation, And then this is kind of the different step. We subtract your non-negotiables. So those are the things that you really value and want in your life. In my case, travel, my daughter's activities like hockey, volleyball, and then I'm a golf addict, so golf. But there's other things as well that go into those non-negotiables, and it's going to be different depending on the person, quite honestly. And so we subtract those away, and then we have a pile of money left over. And what we do with that pile of money is we actually divide it into a weekly amount that I call a spendable. And so your spendable is essentially guilt-free money that you can spend every week. And as long as you stay within that dollar value, all of your non-negotiables have been met. So you've already kind of taken care of the things that you care about. And now we just have this money that we can use however we want, guilt-free, as long as we stay within the dollar value. And so an example at my house, $700 is our weekly spendable. We spend it on retail, food, entertainment. It doesn't matter if I spend the whole 700 on golf and my family starves, or if we eat really well that week and we spend $700, as long as we stay in that $700 limit, we are going to reach our other financial goals. And so that's kind of the difference between budgeting. We're not tracking every time we spend. It's quite freeing, actually.
Yeah, that sounds a lot more, makes more sense. And it's making me think about a diet when you said that. Like,
Ugh,
don't do a diet either. So it's the same idea. You need a different approach.
exactly.
Okay, so I like that. That's cool. So I consider a home to be an investment, even if you don't rent it out. So I'm just going to throw that up there, just because when they hear investment properties, often don't think of the primary home. But when someone is renting out a home, or buying a home as a rental property, you bought your first one in 2019. And how did you plan for that? And how did you handle any fears that came up that could have stopped you? Because I find, myself included, a lot of people, the fears kind of prevent them from moving forward.
Yeah, fear is a big one. That's a great point. I'm going to be bluntly honest, as per usual with me. We didn't plan a ton for our purchase. So I'm going to tell you what happened. My sister called. She wanted to look at an investment property and they wanted us to go in on it with her. So she had been kind of mulling the idea. They're self-employed and they wanted to get another property as a means of an investment that wasn't just putting money into their RRSP. So they decided for the future that was going to be their plan. So she actually sent me the link to the realtor listing. I took a look. I'm like, this looks very interesting. And then I told my husband, and he's very risk averse. So he was like, don't think so, not interested, you know?
Oh, wow.
So as wives do, we end up winning. No, I'm just joking. But as wives do, I just got him to get in the car and go for a drive, you know? So we went to take a look at the house. And then when we got there, it was really nice house, including a granny flat. So two forms of rental income, two separate forms of rental income, which was big. And honestly, it was pre-COVID. So the price was right. The prices were very good as well. And we were out in the Port Hope area. So again, that was a big seller. And so we took our notebook, we headed to Starbucks down the road. We did our little cash flow plan, made sure it cash flowed. And we decided, you know what, this looks like a good purchase. The other thing I will say that's really important, so we did a little bit of research, but we spoke to my cousin who's big into investment properties and we asked him some questions. So I think if you can have a mentor that you can kind of ask some questions back and forth to, that you trust, that was a big way for us to reduce our fears, because he really gave us a lot of great information and really kind of eased our concerns. You know, he was very, very particular about certain things like property management fees and things like that that we wouldn't necessarily have known on our own. So the
Yeah,
mentor,
that's really good. And I
yeah,
think, people can reach out to you or to me and find, like, how do you find a mentor if you're not sure how to find one? There's lots of ways to find people who can help you. So
exactly.
that's awesome. So I like it. And then that's a great comment about maybe buying with family is a more comfortable way to do things.
I think some of the fear too was the risk was laid out over two couples instead of one. So a first time arrangement, it was nice for us to kind of 50-50 it and not have all the weight on our shoulders. That's a great point. Because if it was just me telling my husband, let's go, we wouldn't have bought it. No way.
Yeah. You're making my wheels turn. Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, and so the same question for your vacation rental. How did you plan for that? And I know from talking to you before, it might be a similar answer, but um, again, how did you kind of proceed with that and handle any fears, objections, concerns with that for the Airbnb?
Yeah. Yeah, the vacation rental in Mont Tremblant was a little bit of a different goal. So it wasn't so much the investment part, it was dual purpose, which was investment and also pleasure, because we wanted to be able to use it ourselves. So it's in Mont Tremblant, Quebec, which is beautiful all season, and it's on a golf course. I love golf. We've talked about that, and my husband loves skiing. So it checked a lot of the boxes for us in terms of our own personal use. But we did do a little bit of research. We actually found the place. We were looking out west. We were looking at Alberta first. We're looking out west for some reason. I don't know why. And then we went on a trip with my parents to Mont Tremblant. And when we were there, I'd never been in the summer and I fell in love. And so, again, being a little bit pushy, my husband, I set up some dates to go see some places. And we fell in love with one. We walked in and we knew pretty much right away it was just heads and tails above the other things that we had seen. So we ended up putting an offer in and just kind of going ahead with it. But in order to get rid of some of the fear, we had a great real estate agent. So once again, it's who's on your team. Really important because I don't speak French. So in Mont Tremblant, making sure that you have the right people is really important. I also had a friend that had a place in Mont Tremblant. So we asked him some questions as well before we got into that. And we really did a little bit of I did a little bit of the background on what's the difference owning in Quebec versus Ontario and those types of things as well. And then finally, we had already checked out prices in other locations like Alberta, Collingwood, and quite honestly, Quebec was half the price that we would have paid if we went to Collingwood. We bought a 2,500 square foot townhouse, 5 bedroom, backing onto the golf course for around $750,000. So
Wow.
I knew we could make the same amount nightly, pretty much to rent, but for about half the price of going to Blue Mountain. So that was kind of the deciding factor.
That's amazing. And do you have property managers for both properties?
We do, yes. Yeah, and that's another thing, like you got to find ones that you really trust. The ones we have right now are excellent. The first set we had, not so good, and it makes a massive difference to your profit as well. So it's important to really do your due diligence with the property managers too.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. Like it doesn't always work right off the bat, but it's a learning process like everything else.
This is it, right? Unless you
Yeah.
actually are in it, it's hard to know how it's going to go. So sometimes you just have to adjust on the fly.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, so some of us have different approaches to money than our spouses. How do people get on the same track or find a path that will work for both of them?
Yeah, this comes up in my work all of the time because I often work with like couples making pretty good money, but they can't come to kind of a consensus on how to use that money. Um, and I've been there before too. Like I was always just in charge of the money and my husband was along for the ride. So communication is key. And so what I actually ask my couples to do is I ask them to start a money date. So have a money date once a month. This is not to drag your spouse over the coals for what they spent that month. It's not even about the numbers. It's about conversations in regards to money, like things like vacation planning or looking in 5 years, where do we want to be? Do we want to get into an investment property? What was it like growing up at your house? Did they talk about money? All of the background stuff,
Mhm.
because what happens is that informs how comfortable your spouse is to talk about money. And at my house, my husband wasn't until we started kind of having these nicer money conversations over wine and dinner. And so
Oh, I like that.
make it pleasurable, right? And so I think that's really key because most people wait until they're in an argument to talk about money.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and that's not a great place to kind of build your financial goals with your partner. You want to build them. And listen, everybody has money fights. We still have some. It's just the way life is. But realistically, we also have a very shared financial path. And so it's a lot easier to stick to the program in terms of your money if you know exactly where that program is taking you.
Yeah, I love that. That makes sense. Okay, perfect. So, do you plan to invest more this year, buy any more properties? And if so, why or why not?
So I don't personally plan to invest this year, mainly because I invested in my business. So I just started my business about a year and a half ago. So a lot of my money is going into that. However, I have a lot of clients that are looking at this year, mainly because interest rates are up, which people are like, what? But I know we've talked about this before. So when interest rates are up, oftentimes the prices are down and the price of what you buy is not going to change, but the interest rate can. So a lot of my clients are looking at maybe getting in when the prices are a bit lower and then refinancing down the road to get a lower interest rate, because it might not actually be a bad time to pick up an investment property when that price is low.
I agree with you. Absolutely. Okay,
I
makes sense.
it's math.
Um, I know I talked to you about you made a comment to me before about sometimes people aren't going to be the right fit for your program because they maybe just need to make more money. They're not, it might not be that they're wasting money or not being conscious of how they're spending. They just aren't making enough given our current
Economy.
world, or maybe based on their goals, it's just not going to be enough and you refer them elsewhere. So maybe you could make any more comment about that, because I think a lot of people kind of think, oh, a coach is going to fix everything, but not always, right? Like,
Yeah. There's two sides to this question. I think the first side is that making more income for some people is not going to fix the problem. Like if you're making really good money, getting another 3%, 5%, it's probably not going to fix your problem if you have a behavioral spending issue. But sometimes it's just that your income is not able to allow you to get what you want out of your money, like you said. And so oftentimes that'll happen with people maybe who are in single income houses or have been stuck at a specific wage for a period of time, and as inflation goes up, all of a sudden it's really eating into our wage essentially. And so in that case, I typically suggest, I have a couple of career counselors that I will often refer out to, because they will help people with their resume, brush up on their skills, and maybe try and get something more. The other thing I see a lot is if people stick with one company for a long time, oftentimes they don't get the wage bump ups that they would get if they're willing to change companies. So it takes a little bit more work, but when you actually move companies in the business world, at least, you're usually compensated for that move. And so that's something they get comfortable. They don't want to look around. I get it, but you may be doing yourself a disservice when it comes to your income if you're doing that.
okay, or maybe even just get the courage to ask for a raise, that if you're due.
Absolutely. And I think with women specifically have a hard time doing that and talking about money and being open and honest. But I think that we're gaining a lot of confidence and power. And so absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to ask, what are your top three-ish tips for investors, but I guess, or new investors, but it could also just be, families or anybody who's maybe, something you find helpful, especially in a challenging economy, that would
I,
be helpful.
I was thinking about tips for investors because one of the things I find is, like, I wouldn't call myself a real estate mogul or investor, which is funny. I have, like, we own 3 properties, but for me, it's just, I don't want to say we fell into it, but we got into it. We liked it. I wouldn't say that it's my like title, but I do think that a lot more people in my position could be doing what I'm doing if they just kind of took the leap, because I find that's part of it, is that fear stops people. So one of my tips is that sometimes you have to take the leap. But I have a couple of other tips. The first one is you have to know your numbers. So even if you go to the mortgage broker or you go to the bank or wherever you're going, you should go to a mortgage broker. But anyways, even if you go and they say this is how much you can afford, you still have to run your cash flow, run those numbers and make sure that that's going to work for you, depending on your lifestyle, because that's really important. And sometimes you may have to float your place, the investment property yourself, if you don't have a renter in, or if you have to do renovations, or for whatever reason. And so it is important to know your numbers. The second one I kind of already mentioned, which was have a mentor or find a mentor, someone you can ask questions to. I've had, I think it's it's 4 sets of couples now ask me about Mont Tremblant, and I've helped them in deciding if they want to go ahead with it. And we've talked about it. These are not clients of mine. This is for free, 30-minute chat. I talk them through some of the things to really be considering. I love doing that. I love sharing what I've been through. And we did that in a workshop. And so again, find a mentor and someone who's willing to chat with you about money, because I really like it and it's helpful for people. Another one, location. Kind of already talked about this with Mont Tremblant, but that was a huge thing. If we'd have bought in Blue Mountain or something, I don't know if we would be making any money at all. We may have already sold at this point. So it's important to pick your location carefully. And then the last one that I was going to say, oh no, I think I already said it, but yeah, sometimes you got to leap and just trust your gut. So sometimes it's like, that happened in Port Hope. I was like, all right, we're in. And my husband's like, we are? Yeah. Sometimes you just got to trust your gut.
I was listening to a presentation about that topic earlier today, and it's so important to tap into yourself and your gut knows.
It
Yeah,
does. Yeah.
yeah,
And I think sometimes you push it down and you're like, don't push it down. Listen to that, right? It's really important.
yeah. Excellent tips.
Thanks.
So you have a young family, and do they participate in real estate investing or management, or just the fact that you're a money coach? How does your family play in?
That's kind of funny. This morning, my daughter was going on a tangent, like a rampage, about why she had to learn, I don't even know what it was, in math, and why she wasn't learning about money and finances and how much more important that would be. And so I asked her if I could videotape her to put on Instagram, and it was a no because she's 12.
She's
Uh,
12. Okay,
yeah,
mom, that's not cool. Okay.
no, she's like, Mom, cringe. But anyway, so she does hear what I'm saying. She definitely follows along. I force her to follow some of my money strategies. Like she uses cash for her back to school shopping because it reduces spending by 25%. And then she actually likes it. So she does do that. The real estate side, not as much, but she does kind of get involved and ask questions about the property managers, how much do they take and what do they do for that? And so we don't get into the nitty gritty of the numbers, but she definitely kind of hears about the process and quite enjoys it. So I see a little businesswoman that's developing.
I love that. And it will allow her later to not think of it as a big thing. Like, oh, my family invests. It's just what we do.
I agree. And I think I talk about money being taboo. I hate that money talk is taboo. Like, how are you going to learn if people aren't talking and sharing and really sharing that knowledge, right? And so for me, it's like, great, let's just open up the floodgates now so she feels comfortable asking questions and it's only going to benefit her in the long run.
Yeah, very true. So what would your last piece of advice be for Canadians right now?
Ooh, it's tough. I was just reading an article that people are spending more than they're bringing in every month in general. You need a plan. And so a lot of people have been making pretty good money for the last number of years without a plan, and it hasn't necessarily been impacting them that much. Right now, it is. It's starting to really show itself. So I think a plan is great in good times, and a plan is necessary in hard times. So it's going to be the thing that kind of keeps your head above the water and allows you to come out the other side of this kind of tough economic time. And by that, I really mean a cash flow plan and have a plan for your money. Don't just winging it anymore is not working.
Yeah, I think I know my household's feeling that, and yeah, it's a great point that we're probably everybody feeling it with costs, So
I think everybody is. Yeah, it's hard out there right now.
yeah. Okay, well, how can people find you?
So I love Instagram, which I didn't even get on it until like a year ago. So I don't know what it is. I just like to be myself on Instagram. Maybe I was supposed to be an actress. Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, angieross.moneycoach, not the most original name, but you can find me there. And then also my email address is angieross.moneycoach@gmail.com. So I'm always available on there, but you can find all my contact information on Instagram as well. And I love chatting money. So if anyone has a question, throw it my way.
Well, you have really great content. You have lots of really helpful, useful tips, and I'm so grateful that we met. And I'm really appreciate you sharing all this with us today.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on, Gretchen. And you are a wealth of knowledge as well. So I appreciate having you in my network.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, we'll sign off. Bye bye.
Bye.